Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're holding a daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph. This is 28A1 in the art scroll. We're dealing with a Mishnah. The Mishnah was a Mishnah about which relatives are too closely related, and therefore they would be considered disqualified to be witnesses. We brought a pasuk last week when we were learning. Look at the side, the Torah or Hashalom on the Hebrew side. So on the right margin, the second piece from the right margin, it says first one is Mistaris Hashaz, second one is Torah or Hashalom, and it brings the pasuk that we were dealing with. There's Lo Yamatu Avot Al Banim. The father should not die because of the children. Uvanim Lo Yamatu Al Avot, and children should not die because of their fathers. Ish Bechita O Yumatu, each one should die for his own sin. So based on this pasuk, we learn the father shouldn't die because of the kids, meaning the kids shouldn't give testimony against their father and kill him. In the same way, the fathers cannot give testimony about their children and kill them. And fathers would include an uncle. So this is including fathers include father and uncle, and it means father and his brother, so the father and the uncle to the son, and also the nephew to the uncle. So it's the father and the brother, father's son, and his brother's son. That is the pasuk that said the father cannot give testimony about his nephew or his son, and definitely not to his brother. And the uncle cannot give testimony to his nephew and his son, and the son and the cousin cannot give testimony about their father or their nephew. That's the pasuk. So let's take a look. The Gemara starts off. We find that sons cannot give testimony to the father, father cannot give testimony to the sons. And definitely, the father and his brother cannot give testimony against each other. They can't give testimony to their children. Then, of course, testimony about themselves they can't give. The question is, banim levanim minalan. How do I know cousins? How do I know cousins can't give testimony? Okay, uncle to nephew, father to son. I can understand the pasuk says, but the pasuk doesn't talk about cousins. Maybe cousins will be mutar, maybe kosher, edim. So banim levanim minalan. How do I know cousins, children to children, second generation family? How do I know that they are apostle? Mar says, Im Kain, lift up kra, lo yimatu avot al bain. It should have said the father shouldn't die because of the son. Why does it say my banim? Why is it used plural? Banim, children, sons. Dafinu banim lahadade. The pasuk, when it uses the plural banim, coming to tell us that sons to sons will also be pasul le'edut, would also be disqualified as edim. So the fact that it uses the language of banim, plural, that teaches us about cousins. So far, what we know is that the first generation, being the father and his brother, pasul to give edut, the father and to the second generation, son or nephew, would be pasul le'edut. And now we learned that the second generation, son to his cousin, right, the father's son to his brother's son, that way will also be possible. Now the Gemara has another question. Now we know cousins can't give testimony about themselves. One cousin can't give to another cousin testimony. Can't give edut about each other. But what about two cousins giving testimony together about a third person? You tell me I can't give testimony about each other. What about them giving testimony together, two cousins, or any two relatives that so far are apostle, uncle and the nephew, the father and the son, father and the brother, either or? How do I know that they cannot come together to give edut about a third person, about a non-related third person? So Amar Rami Bar Chamo, Rami Bar Chamo says Svarahu. It's actually a svara. It's a logic. There's a logic to it. Why? In the Tanya, as we taught in the Braita, and ha'idim na'asin zomimim, achis mushenehem. When it comes to Eidim Zayimim, right? Eidim Zayimim are false witnesses. Become false witnesses by another two pair of witnesses come and say that we saw you that day that you said you saw what happened. We saw you somewhere else. You were with us somewhere else that day. Therefore, you never could have seen the incident that happened over here. They become Eidim Zayimim. Whatever they wanted to do to the other person happens to them. So if they wanted to make someone pay money, they now have to pay money. If they try to kill somebody through the Eidud, they get killed. So here he's bringing a teaching from a writer that says the only time you make Eidim Zomimim is if both the witnesses were proven to be Eidim Zomimim. They're both proven to be false witnesses. If you had only one became a false witness, right? So Reuven and Shimon gave testimony, and then Levi Yehuda said that Reuven is a false witness. He was with us all day in Disneyland. He couldn't have been there when he says he was there. So now Reuven is an Eid Zayim. He's false witness. He's been proven false. However, you do not punish him with whatever he tried to do to someone else, unless Reuven and Shimon were proven to be Eid Zayim. So even though his testimony he's been proven false, the punishment of Hazama, of doing to them what they try to do to someone else, doesn't happen until both of them become Eidim Zayim. So what do we see from this? He says what we see is it's that one Eidim Zayimim is causing another Eidim Zayimim to get punished. Because if only one of them becomes Eidim Zayimim, then nothing happens to him. But if the other one also becomes an Eidim Zayimim, then he gets punished. And who's punishing him? Where is he getting punished from? From the fact that the other witness also becomes Eidim Zayimim. So he says as follows: if you think that two cousins can give testimony together, so what happens now if they both become Eidim Zayimim? One cousin is causing another cousin, or an uncle to a nephew, father and a son, whichever way you want to learn, any color any relative we're talking about, is causing the other one to get in trouble. And the pasuk says no. The father doesn't die because of the son doesn't find his father. Ubanim means cousins. So they cannot get each other in trouble. They can't do that. Can't die because of one another. So since Eidim Zayimim, they get in trouble because of the other witness, because when the other witness gets proven false, they get the punishment with them. So they're being caused the punishment through the relative. And we already know, the pasuk says you cannot get punished through your relative. So therefore, he says that's the logic. The logic is you can't have two cousins or any two relatives give testimony together against someone else because they can be proven as false witnesses. And if they're proven as false witnesses, you have to punish them. And it turns out they're being punished because one another. You can't have that. The pasuk says that. That's his logic. So Amarle Rava said to Rami Bar Chama, but according to your reason, we're going to have a problem with the Mishnah. You're saying that cousins can't be the Eidim Zayimim. Can't be. You say cousins can't give testimony together because they can become Eidim Zayimim. They're going to pretty much make themselves punished. But we have a Mishnah. Mishnah says as follows: Shlosha achin ve'echad mistaref imahen hare elu gimel edut vehen edut achat lahazama. What's the case? I went and I bought a field. Okay, 3 years passed, and I don't have my shtar anymore. I don't have my document of purchase, of sale. So I need to prove. Now the guy who sold to me says, "Oh, I never sold it to you." So now I need to prove that I bought it, right? How do you prove it without a shtar? You have what's known as chazaka. You have to bring witnesses that say they saw you living there for 3 years. So near your field, where you bought this field, where I bought this field, there lived one house. There's one house there, and there lived brothers. But the brothers took turns living on that in that house. So every year, a different brother lived there. 1 year, one brother, next year, another brother, next year, another brother. And to the other side lived another person. He was there all 3 years. So now, the first brother, brother A, comes with this neighbor, and he gives testimony that this guy was here for 1 year. Brother B comes with this guy from next door and says he was here the second year. And then brother C comes with the guy from next door, and he gives testimony that this guy was here for the third year. So now you have 3 brothers who gave testimony together with one guy, and it's considered 3 separate testimonies, so it's kosher. But if you want to make them Einim Zayimim, if you want to prove them false witnesses, you have to prove them all to be false witnesses, the 3 brothers and this guy. And then you make them pay. So the Mishnah says that you make them pay all together. And this is the 3 brothers. So now you're telling me brothers have to pay because of one another, because they all have to become Eidim Zayimim, and now they're causing each other to have to pay. But you told me they can't punish each other. The pasuk says, the Gemara says this whole logic doesn't stand up. The reason why Hazama, the punishment for Eidim Zayimim, is what it is, and Hazama comes from an external source. It comes from the people who come and prove them to be false. That's when the punishment comes in. Nothing to do with the other guy who gave testimony with you. So to hear 2 relatives to become Eidim Zayimim, it's not that they're causing each other to pay. It's the false witnesses who come and prove them to be false. The witnesses who come and prove them to be false, they're the ones who's causing them to pay. So then the question goes back: how do we know that cousins or any relatives or apostles cannot give testimony together about a third person? More answers. Elim Kain, Lichter Kra Uvein al Avot. Let the pasuk write the son on the father. Inami him al Avot, them on their fathers. My uvanim. Why does it say uvanim? Could have just said him al banim, uven al Avot. Why say ubanim al Avot? They mean afilu banim le alma. They teach us even relatives together to give testimony about someone else. That is also pasul. That becomes pasul. So we have so far that the relatives cannot give testimony against each other, and they cannot give testimony together regarding someone else. The Gemara continues, Ashkechon Karoivei Ha'av. We found the source to tell us that father's relatives are possible. As it says, Loimitu Avot Albanim. Keruvei Ha'em Minalin. How do you know about the mother's relative? Omar Kra Avot Avot Trezimne. It says father, father 2 times in the pasuk. Right? It says Loimitu Avot Albanim. Uvanim loyim metu alavot. So it says father, father twice. Why does it say it twice? Im kra avot, amar kra avot avot reitzimnei. Im enu inyan lekrovei ha'av, tenehu inyan lekrovei ha'em. Since you can only use one for the actual father, and you have an extra father in the pasuk, therefore teach it about the mother. Therefore, the mother's relatives will also come to be pasul le'edut. So the mother's brother and the mother's brother's son, the mother's sister's husband, the mother's sister's husband's son, they all become pasul le'edut. The fact it says avot avot, one avot for the father, one avot for the mother. Similarly, when we have Elisha saw the Navi go up to Shemayim, right? He screams, Avi, Avi, my father, my father. And Parshim say, he says, Avi, he really wants to say, Avi, Be'imi, my father and my mother, because Eliyahu took care of all his needs. And he called him, he didn't want to call him Imi, not nice. So he called him Avi, Avi, right? My father, my father. So similarly, Avot, Avot, one father meaning the father, one father meaning the mother. Okay. Ashkechan l'chova. Now, we have in the pasuk, you can't get them in trouble, right? Don't kill them based on the father and the son based on the father. L'schut min alan. How do I know about, I'm not allowed to give testimony for their benefit, to say someone owes them money, or to say they got an inheritance or whatever, to say something good for them. How do I know I can't do that? Mar says, says in pasuk, Yumetu, right? Lo yumetu avot avani, but lo uvanim lo yumetu alavot. Says lo yumetu twice. Don't kill them twice. Trei zimne. You can't teach them both for determined to punish. Therefore, teach one of them about zechut. In this pasuk, we have a lot of learning, a lot of teaching so far. This learning now, this teaching is, in this pasuk we learn that you can't testify for good, and you can't testify for bad. Loimatu is good, loimatu can be bad, and you can't testify either way. Okay? Ashkechan b'dinei nefashot. Now in the pasuk we see it says loimatu, don't kill. We see it talking about capital punishment. B'dinei mimanot melalan. How do we know about dinei mimanot, about money? How do you know by money we can't have them testify against each other? Amakra, two psukim later, it says, Mishpat echad yelachem. It should be one mishpat, mishpat hashaveh lachem. It should be an equal law for money and for capital punishment. Capital and civil cases should be identical. So therefore, the halacha l'maaseh is cousins cannot give testimony about each other. Brothers cannot. Uncles and nephews cannot. And as we continue learning, we'll go through further the laws, and not in capital cases, and not in money cases. Not for their zechut, not for their benefit, and not for their deterrent, for punishment. In all those, you cannot give testimony against each other, and you cannot give testimony together either about a third person. Okay. We're coming to Rav. Before we get to Rav, I want to see if I can share with you a photo that I took from the Gemara here that I have. I want to share my screen. How come I don't remember how to share a screen? I'll share. I'll share photo. This one. You guys can see what I'm showing you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is very important for the next Gemara, is to have this chart over here about these family members. Okay? So we're going to keep it on this just for us to understand it. So let's start. Omar Rav. Okay, Rav said, Achi Abba lo ya'id li. My father's brother cannot testify concerning me. So in the picture, Rav is that white fellow, number 2. You see in that second generation family, there's the white guy. That's Rav in this case. So he's saying my father's brother, so his uncle, and you can see that number 1 uncle, that guy cannot testify against me. Who? Him, Uvno, and his son. So if you look down in the second generation, his son, that's his cousin, right? Rav's cousin. He cannot testify against me. V'chatano, and my uncle's son-in-law. So your cousin-in-law. So your cousin's spouse. So here's the female, right? You have right next to the uncle's son, you see that looks like a skirt. They drew it upside down. So you have the skirt, and she's married. That's the son-in-law. So Rav says, Rav is number 2. He says, I'm this number 2 guy. Number 1, uncle, definitely father can't, right? That's for sure. But my uncle can't, and my cousin can't, and my cousin-in-law can't testify against me. What would be the reason that the cousin-in-law can't be testifying against me? The reason would be because he's married to his cousin. And Ishto Kibalo, the wife is like the husband. They're considered one unit, and therefore he is considered her, and therefore can't give testimony. So far, so good, right? This we all know. Cousins can't give testimony, uncles, nephews, we're all good with this. Now his next thing. Look at the Gemara. Gemara now says, Rav says what? Af ani lo aid lo. So too, I cannot testify. I cannot testify against my father's brother, right? Af ani lo aid lo. I cannot testify against my uncle. So he's saying the wife cannot testify against number one uncle. But who is he including here? He says, ani, me, uvni, and my son, which is now a third generation, right? Rav is saying his son, v'chatani, and my son-in-law, so my daughter's husband. So according to Rav, the third generation cannot give testimony regarding the first generation uncle. Now, the only problem with this is that nowhere in the Mishnah is this case brought down. The Mishnah never gets to the third generation. The Mishnah talks about cousins. The Mishnah talks about brother-in-laws, cousins-in-laws, talks about uncles. It never talks about a third generation, about grandchildren. Or a great nephew to a great uncle. So the Gemara asks, V'amai? Shlishi Barishon. It's a third generation to a first generation. It's too far apart. They're not considered anymore relatives. Va'anan Sheni B'Sheni Tanan. Now, in the Mishnah, we learned about cousins, right? Second generation to second generation. That we did learn. Sheni Barishon Tanan. We learned about nephews to uncles, second generation to first generation. Shlishi Barishon like Tanan. We never learned third generation to first generation. Where is Rav getting this from? That third generation would be possible to give testimony about a first generation. It's not in the Mishnah. The truth is, that's the way the Shulchan Aruch brings it down. The Rambam brings it down that way. That's the halacha. Only second generation to first generation to second generation. Third generation could give testimony about a first, and a third generation can give testimony about a second generation family member. The Ramah is going to hold like Rav, and the Rav says no, third generation cannot give testimony to a first generation. So to make it understandable more, so Solomon, your son, according to Rav, cannot give testimony about a maksason. He cannot give edut. According to the Rambam and according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Mishnah, he could. He's considered too far of a relative to give, and he would be allowed to be giving testimony. iPhone, I think that's a prime. Yes.
Does it go both ways?
That maksason would be able to give edut about his about your son. Yes.
Yes.
It would go two ways.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
According to the Ramah is going to hold like Rav, and he's going to say no. Third generation to first generation would also be possible. Okay. So far that's the machlokes we have halacha. This is machlokes Mishnah and Rav. We're going to have another day in the Gemara soon. We have another day from Elazar. We'll get there in a minute. Now the question is, where does Rav get this halacha that a third generation would be a possible to a first generation? My chatan. So this is what Rav's answer is. He says when the Mishnah says chatan, my chatanot de ketani b'matnitan chatan beno. When it says son-in-law in the Mishnah, it says the man and his son-in-law are possible to give edut. It doesn't mean son-in-law. It means chatan beno. It means my son's son-in-law. The Talmud, it's a third generation. So he's changing the word in the Mishnah from saying chatan to chatan beno, which now would make it a third generation. So the Gemara says, we're on 28:3, Belitne ben beno. Whoa, if the Mishnah wants to teach a grandson, so then just say ben beno. Say the son. Tell me a third generation up front. What are you telling me? It says chatan, and chatan means chatan beno. Just say the grandson, ben beno. So the Gemara answers, it wants to teach us in a roundabout way. Milta agav orcheka mashmalon deva'al keishto. It wants to teach us that a husband is like his wife. So it tells us chatan, and it means chatan beno. And so it's my daughter's chatan, and it becomes like a son. It wants to teach me this whole nice teaching that a wife is like her husband. A husband is like the wife. The Gemara says, cannot be. Rabbi Yechia taught about a dim that are pasul, and he had a list of how many are considered pasul. Shmona avot shehen esrim v'arba. He said there are 8 main ones, altogether 24. You look at note 27. So he says, what are the 8 main ones? A brother, uncle from the father, an uncle from the mother, a sister's husband, a father's aunt's husband, a mother's aunt's, mother's side aunt's husband, stepfather and father-in-law. So those are the main 8. And then you add their sons, and then you add their son-in-laws, and you get to 24. If you are adding another generation, a third generation, then you should have 32. You have to add another 8. You should get to 32. And if, Rav, what you're saying, that you add a third generation, Rav Chia should have taught 32 or 40, if you want to consider the sons and the son-in-law separately, but not 24 if you're counting the third generation. So it cannot be that the Mishnah is including the third generation. Rather, when the Mishnah said chatan, it means chatan. Doesn't mean chatan beno, son-in-law of the son. That's not what it means. It means chatano mamash. So why did Rab call him the son's son-in-law? Tell me now it has to be chatan mamash, because Rav Chia didn't list 30. He didn't list 33. He listed only 24. So it cannot be the third generation. So why did Rav call him chatan beno? He said chatan beno. He says kivan de ma'alma ka'ate kedor acher gamei. Rav wants to say, you know what? My son-in-law, since he's not really my son, he's marrying just my daughter. He's not considered the same generation as my daughter. He's once removed, and therefore he's considered a third generation. Okay? So he wants to say that anyone's son-in-law is considered one generation away. That's why he said not my son, but it's rather my chatan beno, because he's once removed. If this is true, that his son-in-law is considered one level removed from his blood-related counterpart, then it would be a third-level relative concerning a second-level relative that the Mishnah says is pasul. The Mishnah said that cousin and cousin-in-law would be pasul, right? So you look at number 2. Look in the picture number 2. So the white, he's the cousin. And then you have the cousin-in-law. According to Rav right now, he's saying a cousin-in-law would be considered a third generation. But Rav, achsher shlishi b'sheni. And according to the Mishnah, that is pasul. Second generation would be pasul, including the cousin-in-law. According to Rav, he's saying the cousin-in-law would be third generation because he's married. He's not considered the same as his wife. But if that's the case, Rav himself said that a third to a second is kosher, and the Mishnah says it's pasul. So it cannot be that way either. Ela Rav is not learning from the Mishnah. Ela Rav the Omer Rabbi Elazar. Rav holds like Rabbi Elazar. The Tanya, Rabbi Elazar Omer. Shem sha'achi abba lo ya'id li hu uveno v'chatino. Because just like my father's brother can't give testimony about me, him, his son, and his son-in-law. So go back to the white picture too. That's the guy. That's Rabbi Elazar. That's going to be the person we're in question. So number one, uncle can't, son and son-in-law. So all those in black, and between one and second generation, they're all possible. This we already know. Then he says, Kach, so too, bein achi abo, so too my father's brother's son cannot testify concerning me, not him, who, uvno, v'chateno, not him, not his son or his son-in-law. So he now adds a third generation. According to Rabbi Elazar, he's adding a third generation. He imagine underneath there was another whole list over there. According to him, all those people are usher. Let me see if I can take another picture to show you this. I don't know if I'll be able to do this. Hold on. Right here. You can see this camera, or let's see if I can put this around. Okay. All right, you're not getting this, right? Okay. Just hold on 1 second, okay? Hold on 1 second here. All right. All right. You can see this picture now? This is Rabbi Elazar's opinion. So he's saying everyone in that third generation is possible to give a due to the second generation and to the first generation. This whole group will be possible. So again, let's read Rabbi Elazar. Kach ben achi abba, so to my father's brother's son, so his cousin. Loya idli, he can't give testimony. Who? Him. Uvno, and his son, so my cousin's son. Vechatano, and his son-in-law. He cannot give testimony. Now, what happens is, Vakati shlishi b'sheni. For 1 second, according to Rabbi Elazar, this third generation cannot give even on the second generation. He says it cannot give to the first generation and it cannot give to the second generation. But the Rav achshar shlishi b'sheni. Rav, in a certain case, he permitted the third generation to a second generation. So Rav doesn't hold like Rabbi Elazar. So who's Rav hold like? The Gemara says, no, Rav savar lekaveta b'chada, upalig alei b'chada. The truth is, Rav agrees with Rabbi Elazar partially and doesn't agree with Rabbi Elazar in another part. He agrees to Rabbi Elazar that a third generation is not allowed to give to a first generation. It's more direct. But a third generation to a second generation, he would be matir it. Okay, so just to review the three opinions that we have. We have the first opinion. This is the Mishnah. According to the Mishnah, second generation to first generation to second generation, that's it. That's what's considered pasul. Anything outside of that, any third generation, they're already kosher to give edut about the second and about the first. All right, so their father's cousins, they would be permissible to give edut about. Okay? So far, so good? You need me to put it into better pictures, or you guys got it? Any comments? Okay. I would take
We got it. We got it.
You got it. Okay. According to Rav, third generation is only possible to the first generation. So your kid, right? So let's consider ourselves second generation, right? So Ephraim, so your kids, according to Rav, cannot give testimony about your uncle, and your uncle can't give testimony about them. But your kid can give testimony to about your cousins. So Avner and Avner's kids, which is your cousins, your children can give a dut about them according to Rav. According to Rabbi Lazar, that would also be awesome. Well, halacha, the poskim only bring down either the Rambam, which learns in the Mishnah just second to first, first to second, or the Ramah that goes with Rav and says that you have to be worried about third to first, but not third to second. Okay, so far so good. Now, my Tama de Rav. What's Rav's reason? Where does he get the Torah? Where in the Torah does he see a reason that grandchildren should also be considered possible aids? He says the Omar Kra, because it says in Pasuk, the same Pasuk that we've been dealing with over and over again. It says, Lo yumutu avot albanim uvanim. You have to read the Pasuk a little different, put the comma separately. So Lo yumutu avot albanim uvanim. Now, what does that mean, banim uvanim? Sons and sons. What does that mean? Lerabot dor acher. It's in order to add on another generation. So that's what Rav sees. To add another generation. The third generation, you pass it to the first generation. Rabbi Elazar, he says even third to second. What does he go? He says albanim. It says loy mitu avot albanim, meaning albanim amrachmana pisulei davot shadei abanim. If someone is possible to the father, he's going to be possible to the son. That's what it means. Albanim, avot albanim. If the father is possible, then you'll be possible to the sons also. So according to Rabbi Elazar, since you're saying the third would be possible to the first, because it says ubanim, then once he's possible to the first, he's already possible to the second as well. If the father will be possible to the second. Now, according to everyone, the third generation would be permissible. So third generation to third generation would be what? Third generation to third generation would be prime, your kid to Avner's kid. That would be third generation to third generation, right? And that would be totally permissible to be edim for them for you, or to give edut together. Everyone got it? Good. Fine. I thought it wasn't that difficult. I think you have to just set it up correctly in your head, and it comes out in the end. All right, let's take a look at the next case. Amar Rav Nachman, Achi chamoti lo ya'id li. My mother-in-law's brother cannot testify concerning me. Mother-in-law's brother. Okay? Mother-in-law's brother.
Your wife's the
Right. So why would that be possible? Very simple. Because you're married to your wife. So ishto kibalo, a wife is like her husband, husband's like the wife. So your mother-in-law becomes your mother. Wait a second, right? So your mother-in-law is like your mother. So then your mother's brother is your uncle. And if he's your uncle, then he's possible to do. He's not allowed to be giving you testimony. Ben achi hamoti lo ya'id li. My mother-in-law brother's son cannot testify concerning me. Right? My mother-in-law's brother's son, he cannot give testimony because my mother-in-law's brother became my uncle through marriage, right? And Yishtokibalo, so is actually my uncle. And since This is my uncle's son. This is my cousin, right? Becomes my cousin. And if it's my cousin, then it's possible edut. Second to second is possible. Ben achot hamuti, my mother-in-law's sister's son, lo ya'idli. Again, my mother-in-law's sister is my aunt, and her son, or her husband, also will be possible to me, and her son will be possible to me because also my cousin can be considered. But Tanatun and Toto, we learned in the Mishnah, Baal Choto, the husband of my sister, or Baal Achot Aviv, and the husband of my aunt, or Baal Achot Imo, and the husband of my mother's sister, Hen Uvnehen, them, their children, the Chatenehen, and their son-in-laws would all be considered Pasul Le'edut. They're all considered first and second generations, and therefore they're considered Edut. So, two things to remember: first and second generation, Pasul, and remember that in-laws is considered your family. And therefore, it becomes possible for you. Amar Rav Ashi, ki havinon be'ula abayelon. When we were in the house of Ula, they asked, what about Achi Chamiv Mahu? One's father-in-law's brother. My father-in-law has a brother. Is he kosher or apostle? Ben Achi Chamiv Mahu. My father-in-law brother's son. Ben Achot Chamiv Mahu. And my father-in-law's sister's son. Right? So all these are pretty much the same case. My father-in-law becomes my father. His brother becomes my uncle. His son becomes my cousin. And my father-in-law's sister's son also my cousin. So it becomes possible. So Amar Lav, we already learned in our Mishnah, Achiv, a brother, the Achi, Aviv, and the brother's father, Achi Imo, and the brother's Achi Imo, and the brother of his mother, Hein, Uvnein, Nechatinehen, Hem, their children, themselves, their children, and their son-in-laws all become possible. So in all these cases, again, they're considered a close relative, first or second generation, and then they become possible. Rav Ikla Lemizban. Rav went to buy Givilei. He went to buy parchment. So Ba'umine, when he came to buy the parchment, they asked him the question, Ma'u Shahid Adam be'eshet horgo. Can one testify regarding his stepson's wife? So looks like what's the case? His stepson's wife. So he married a woman that had a child, right? A woman that had a child. His wife's child now has a wife. Can he testify about his stepson's wife? So the Surah Amre Baal Ki Ishto. The husband is like his wife, right? So husband's like the wife. I mean, you are your wife, you are the mother, and your mother is your son, and your son has a wife. So your apostle is too close. All right, you are the mother because you married her, Baal Ki Ishto, and then that's your son considered. Your stepson is considered your son, and that's your stepson's wife. So of course, and he's like your wife is considered a son, so it's all possible. The Pampadita Amre Isha Kibala, they said the wife is like her husband. That this man, the guy, the son's wife is like the son. And she's the son, that's the mother, and you're the mother, and the father. It's pretty much the same answer. Basically, you're possible to be an age for that. The Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Nachman, the Nayin Isha Kibala. You keep saying wife is like your husband, husband is like your wife. Where do we get this from? Where in the Torah it says? It says in Vayikra. Dichtiv. Iravat achi avicha lo tigaleh el ishto lo tikrav dodecha. He says, don't uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. Don't approach his wife. She is your aunt. Gemara says, she's not your aunt. She is your uncle's wife. She's not your true aunt. She's not a blood aunt. However, it calls her aunt Meklad Isha Kibala to tell us that a woman is like her, the wife is like her husband, even though she's not your blood relative. Once she's married to your uncle, she is your aunt. And as such, and the Torah says, Dodat Chahi, she's your aunt. And she becomes possible. So this we learned that through marriage, you become that person. And all their relatives that are possible to them become possible to you as well. We have a little more to go through. Let's see how much we can go. Uval imo, uvno v'chateno, and his mother's husband, his son, and his son-in-law. The question is, why did it tell me a mother's husband, his son, and his son-in-law? Beno hainu achiv. His mother's husband's son, one mother's husband's son is the same as one's brother, right? If my mother married another man, right, and she had a son, that's my half brother. So what are you telling me, a chidush, that the son is going to be apostle? It's my brother, half brother. Gemara says, no, the case is, what's the case? It's only if there's a brother that's not related to me. Okay, how does this happen? How does this happen? This is a case where they come into the marriage, number 5, the stepfather's son from another woman. Okay, so the stepfather comes in with a son from another woman. So this is now going to be to me. So the man marries my mother, right? And he comes in with the son. So he's not really related to me at all. My mother has nothing to do with this other boy. So, but what happens if now she has a son from this man? Like in the case, look at the case. They in the art scroll, note 5. They show a diagram. So the husband comes in with his own son, the wife comes with her own son, and the wife and the husband get together and they have another son. Now they share a half brother. So that's the case. When the Mishnah said the mother's son is possible to him, that's talking about this case, because a mother's son is always possible to my brother. But rather, when it's a case where there is a son in between, now all 3 of them become possible to each other, because even though the son on the left has no blood relation to the son on the right, since they share a son in a brother in the middle, they become possible to each other.
Clarification. So that the son that comes into the marriage, there's no relationship to a different son.
That's right.
Becomes possible only when the 3rd baby is born, the combination, or it's possible from the beginning.
According to Yirmiyah, only when the baby is born, only when that third guy is born. Yeah. According to Yirmiyah that we just learned, that's the way it is. Until the guy in the middle is there, the guy's not in the middle there, they're not possible to each other. Right? Because it's not related to him. It's his mother's husband's son. It's nothing to do with him. That's what it seems to be saying. Okay, however, let's take a look. Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda, achacher v'achi ha'ach. Rav Chizda said, no, a brother's brother is mutar. Even if there's a middle brother in the middle, they two can still give edut about each other. The guy on the left and the guy on the right can still give edut. Amrullah, they said to him, Lo shemi Allah chadr Yirmiyah. You didn't hear what Rabbi Yirmiyah said? You didn't hear what Rabbi Yirmiyah said? So what did he say? Amrullah, Lo shemi, I didn't hear it. Kilaymar, to say, Lo svirali, I don't agree with Rabbi Yirmiyah. I don't agree with Rabbi Yirmiyah. The brother in the middle has nothing to do with anything. So if you're not learning it this way, that it's talking about this middle brother, then what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? The mother's son. It's my brother, the mother's son. So Tana achiv min ha'av, Tanya achiv min ha'em. The Mishnah was not teaching us any chiddush, but rather the Mishnah was telling us a half brother from a father or a half brother from a mother would be considered pasul edut. But ha'ach, my half brother's brother, my half brother's half brother, is not considered pasul. Is not considered pasul edut, according to Rav Chizda. Lehalacha, half brother of a brother, the son of one stepmother's the son of one stepmother from a different father can bear witness about him, as they are not considered relatives. In accordance with Rav Hizda, this is the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, and no one argues on this. So therefore, a stepson that comes in, and even if he has a brother in the middle now, they do share that brother in the middle, there's still going to be mutar to give kosher to give edut to one another. Okay? Very good. Next case. I think it's the next case, and then this will be the last one. Yeah. Omer Rav Chizda. Omer Rav Chizda. Avi Chatan va'avi kala me'edin ze al ze. The father of the kilim and the father of the domot, so the father Chatan, father of the kala, so your kudo, right? The kudos, they are allowed to sit together and give edut. Him me'edin ze al ze. They can give edut against each other, and they can even sit on the bedin together as judges. What are they considered? They're considered, you have a barrel, you have a pot, for example, and you need a lid. You don't have the exact lid for the pot, and you went and you found another one in the closet and you just stuffed it on top. It doesn't fit so perfectly. That's what kudos are. Kudos are where they don't fit so perfectly on top of each other. They're not considered related. So the father of the bride and the father of the groom, they can sit together on a bedin. They can give edut about another person. They give edut about themselves. They're not considered krovim. So what comes out from here, when you have an in-law, a marriage relationship, the marriage relationship is just for that person who has that marriage relationship, and not for his father or his mother or his son. Right? That's what comes out. Because the mother, in the previous case, the mother marries the husband, and the husband has a son. But her son is not related to her husband's son because she's married to him. So everything to her, the way she is, him to her and her to him, yes. But her son is not considered in that marriage connection to his son. Same thing here. The in-laws are not considered, the father-in-law and the father-in-law from both sides are not considered related to each other. However, their children are considered related to both sides. So the marriage only works for them themselves and not for their whole rest extended family. Is that clear, or needs explanation? I'm going to take it that it's clear. Yes? All right. Rabotai, this is where we'll end for this week. What's the plan for next week? We're going to learn.
Why not?
It's Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Oh.
Can we do early? Can we do an early one?
Could try maybe by like Thursday, Friday. We'll have a better picture whether we could pull it off.
What time? Let me shut off the recording. Hold on a second. What time you have selichot?